All right. Thanks for those who've come in, and we will have other people coming in. We've also got quite a few people who have requested a recording. So I think the easiest way to handle this at the moment is I'll take you through the program, and then we will. If you just have any questions, you can pop them into the chat and I'll answer those at the end. I aim to have it sort of wrapped up about 5, so we won't go any longer than we need to. So a brief introduction as to where Facts Forever came from. A lot of the programs that are out and about are sort of Americans. And whilst this can be used in America, it's very little that actually corresponds with the Australian curriculum. So the way we teach things and the timings that we have are a little bit different. And it was sort of just looking for a program that met that need. So what I've sort of tried to draw on is take all the different areas, all the different programs, the research-based evidence that there is, and create sort of a program that meets more of our needs. So I thought the best way tonight is to take us through an example of just the program in general. So I'll just switch the camera and we'll get going from there. All right. So implementing Facts Forever is sort of a 5-stage process. So in the beginning, we need to identify what unit we're going to cover. We need to conduct a unit screener. Then from that unit screener, we get a targeted skill that we want to focus on. And this might be for the whole class, or this might be for our tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. We then have a learning program that we implement from there. And throughout this, we have progress and benchmarking assessments. So we'll just take you through here. So the first thing, obviously, we would need to do as a classroom teacher is decide. So whilst this is sort of the primary school level, I tried to make sure I could fit it all in the time. There is a high school component, but having spoken to a lot of high school teachers, one of the big problems is these areas coming up. So whilst you might have year sevens and eights, the content that they're lacking fluency in might be more towards the primary school level. So I'm a grade 6 teacher, so I'm in term 3, so we're doing multiplicative thinking. Now, for everything that we do, we have these guides. And this allows us to have that consistency across staff in implementing the program. We are developing sort of videos, so staff are able to watch the video, see it in action, how it's intended to be. So they're coming, but up until then, we've got these guys to take us through each step of implementing the program. So we've got our unit screener, we've got our students in start. We're doing multiplicative thinking, so we're just going to focus on multiplication. Now, we have vertical and horizontal. So I know some schools prefer their multiplication to be done in the vertical method. I know some schools want the horizontal method. So we have both of those. So what the student will do is they have 1 minute to complete as many problems as they can. Now, these are specifically created so there's a certain amount of each type of question. So if we're multiplying by 4, there's a certain amount of them in each area of the test. So the students need to go left to right. They complete as many as they can. If they don't know it, they put a cross through it. So the students completed their test, and now let's just switch back. And I'll just share my screen. All right, and our data would go into this, and we're looking to move this more to a digital platform, but we want to get it right. So I completed this test. So we enter the student name. That's the only time we have to enter the name. So in all the other documents, you'll see it's filled across. So something we're making sure we do is ensure that there's very little work that the teachers have to do on top of anything new. So what we are tracking are digits correct. So rather than just correct answers, we want to track the digits because it allows us to handle all the other tests. So a test that's adding to 10 is not marked the same as a test, of 3-digit multiplication. So let's just say I got 2, 1. Let's just say I got 1 for these ones. So we'll just pop some data in to get it going. So I would do that for my class. I only have to do that at the beginning of the unit. Then when I move over to this one, what it will do is calculate my digits correct. And then I just have to work out for that student, how many should I have got? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 13, 14, 16, 18, 19, 20, 22, 24, 26, 27, 29. So I answered 29 digits. I pop that in there. It gives me a percentage. So the most important thing with this program is accuracy comes first. So I don't want to be moving students, even though they got a really high digits correct. I don't want them doing that if their percentage is really low. So if we then pop down to here and let's put Jill, and she got the same amount of questions as me, but she got them all right. When I go down to hers, you can see that she's got a different color coding. So red is well below, yellow is below, green is benchmark, and blue is well above. Now, obviously, we want our students in green and blue. If we're familiar with Dibbles, it's the exact same concept. But what you'll notice over here is that these are all the individual clusters of multiplication facts. I don't want to learn multiplication trying to learn 100 facts simultaneously. I want to be able to break it down. So we can see here that, I struggled with zeros and ones because I was just making up the data, whereas Jill scored well. Twos and threes, we were both not in the well below. And then we have some mixture. So you'd say that the class focus is here, and we have some individual focuses around there. So the tracker does that automatically. So staff can automatically see where the student needs are, where the teacher, they are. So we pop this in here. She gets a green because she's got 100%. So from there, um, fours, even though they're well below, we're going to just stick with fours. So I'll switch again, jumping around a little bit. Just get okay. Okay, so then we've done the screeners. We've got our targeted skill of the fours. So as a class, we're going to look at those fours. We've got implementing our benchmark assessment. So this was the screener was that overarching multiplication. Can they multiply? The answer was obviously with the made up data, no. Then we need to go in a bit more targeted diagnostic assessment. So again, the guides exactly the same for that consistency. The tests exactly the same for the consistency. So this is our multiplying by four benchmark assessment. The students then develop that really clear consistency, their understanding of how the tests work. They go left to right, they complete their test. So jump back. So I've completed the test for my class. Where's my share? And then we have a second tracker. And we'll pop this in here and say, so they're all going to be two. So let's say I got, yeah. So I skipped a few and same thing there. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, what's that? 26, 52. So I got 34 out of 52. So my percentage is low. We get the exact same breakdown again. So whilst I was low in my fours, you can see I knew my four threes, I knew my four sevens, my eights, my nines. So then I've got these then even more targeted areas. So for me, I know exactly that I need to teach this child the fours and I need to teach them four fours, four fives, and four sixes. That's the priority in what we're doing. From there, so okay, we're going to say that's a goal. I'm going to do a 10-week unit. So I'm going to conduct 10 mini assessments. And I want my students to get a score of, I'm going to say 60. I want 60. So I'm going to set it high. You can see the tracker then automatically calculates that this is a 10-week program for Mike here, and that these are the scores I have to get each week to achieve my goal. Now, if, for example, I get a score of, say, I don't know, 43 on the next one, and you want to change the goal, change that to 43. That's now a 9-week one, and you can see the amount I need to score is different. So our trackers allow you to set those goals exactly based on the number of weeks. So, all right, we'll lose 2 weeks. All right, let's make it an 8-week one. Okay, and benchmark, I bench 60 is too high. Let's make it 50. So 8 weeks and we're making it 50. You can see that the score adjusts itself. So all this is happening with the minimal input of the teacher. Okay, then we go, right, Mike, on the first one, he scored 46. Well, 46 is higher than what I needed to score. But let's say I stagnate. I get 46 that week. I'm still doing well. I get 46 that week. Still doing well. Still doing well. You can see here, week 6, this was the score I was supposed to get. So then when I get 46 next week, I'm flagging as a red because my growth isn't matching what I had intended to get. Now, there might be reasons for that, but it allows teachers to not wait till the end of those 10 weeks to say, is this child on track? So there's a lot that the data trackers do. This is for all the different areas. I'm just using multiplication as an example of it. So we've collected the data. We've got the students really targeted focus what we need to do. So let's get into what actually happens in the classroom. So when I go here, I will stop putting this camera on and put that camera on. Flick it back around the right way. All right, so I've done the benchmark assessment. We're now implementing the strategy instruction. So this is a point of difference around Facts Forever in that I don't want us just practicing facts. I don't want us rote memorizing. I don't want any of that. So for each unit, there are these mini lessons. Now they come as a script, but I am absolutely do not encourage anybody who doesn't need it to follow these word for word. These are designed if you have a teacher who's not confident, they don't really know how to teach the fours, a strategy for it. These are here. It's got what they need, it's got what they say, what they ask, sample of student answers. Now, again, the student answer doesn't have to be word for word. They might have another name for that. It's got examples of what the materials work like. We use a heap of models in this section. So in the strategy instruction, they're designed to be 5 to 10 minutes long, but there's a unit with actual counters. And then the next lesson is using those counters and drawing arrays. Then there's drawing the arrays and there's showing it on a number line. So we want that conceptual understanding developing along with our fluency. Now, a lot of other programs I know have those as separate components. Here's the fluency program, but check, you can use these. We embed it in there. So when the students are accurate, not fast, but accurate, then we can move off to strategies. This could be a whole class. This could be a small group. This could be individual. And that data, that targeted data shows us what we need. So I might have been accurate but slow. I don't need this. But I was inaccurate. I was down in 65%. So I needed this. Whereas Jill, she was a well below, but she was 100% accurate. So we use that data informs our program very, very heavily. So then we finished it, and it also has these underlying skills. So if you're going to teach any form of a doubling strategy, you need to actually know how to double. So we look at the evidence, we look at the research and go, okay, and we look at the misconceptions. If a student can't do a skill, what are the skills underneath it that we need? So we've done that. We've done the strategy practice. The students are now accurate, but they're slow. We now can move into our mastery practice. And even within mastery practice, there's sort of 3 stages. We're still developing that accuracy and slowly increasing the speed. So we have a series of activities that you can use. We want them now to be fluent. We want them starting to just lift that speed. Keep the accuracy and lift the speed. Okay, we've got some fluency ones. And then we want that automaticity. We want that ability within 2 seconds just to be able to pull the fact as quickly as they can. Now, these progress through. That doesn't mean, though, that you have to have everybody doing this. Some of the kids can be doing this, this, and this, and you'll see why it's very easy to implement. So, Cora responses. Let's jump the cameras back into share. So we want a mixture of responses. We don't want just what, here we go. When you do Facts Forever, when you do that 5 minutes at the beginning of the lesson, you must do this exact same activity every single day. That's boring. So when we have this, we have our Cora responses. There's plenty of sets, and they use the evidence-based process of constant time delays and progressive time delays. So within each set, there's a set difference between the time. Between the sets, that progressively gets harder or easier as we go along. And each skill appears 5 times. Now you could repeat this. So if you needed 10 times, 15 times, if you needed tier 2 practice, you could repeat this, no problems whatsoever. So lesson 1 uses a constant time delay of 0 seconds, which sounds a bit weird, but I'll explain as we go along. So what happens is I click it, takes me through each lesson, but I get started. So set 1, 4 8s are 32. Then I would ask the kids, 4 8s are 32. So we're not actually wanting them early on to answer. We want them mapping that answer from corrective feedback given instantaneously. 3 4s are 12. 3 4s are, and then the students. So you can see, and all that happens there is that as the lesson goes along, the time increases. So it goes more from teacher led, where you can't answer in that time, to that time they've got 4 or 5 seconds for the student to think and answer. Not long enough that they can then calculate it, but quick enough that they're starting to get that recall. So again, you could use that as a whole class, you could use that as a small group, you could use that individually. But it's all set up, the timings are all set up. So all the teacher has to do is click when they're ready. They don't have to try and go, oh, count 1, 2 while they're trying to deal with the problem. So all of the resources in that Cora response are built around the idea of that corrective feedback, but also set up so the teacher doesn't have to do anything. If you want to focus on particular slides, copy and paste and just pop those slides in. So if 4 7s is giving your kids trouble, you might pop 4 7s in multiple times, which we'll cover in our next part. So I've done that. I've given maybe a week of that. We then have time practice. So now we need the camera. Oop, sorry. All right. So tape problems is the next one. Tape problems, if anyone is familiar with Facts on Fire, uses a very similar concept. So the students will play this. This is recorded. The students play it, and it follows exactly the same as the choral responses. It's that consistency and approach, so everyone gets used to it. So they will hear 4 7s. They'll say 4 7s, and the ant on the first one, um, you'll hear it. Sorry, you hear the equation and then immediately the answer, and you are not expected to answer the equation before hearing it. So they're just copying it. So they hear 4 7s are, they're thinking, get told 28, write 28 down. So 4 or 5 minutes of that. Then we move on to the next day. They get 2 seconds. So if the answer is correct, they write it here. Then they can track. Okay, I got, say, 20 out of 40, but all the ones I got wrong are 4 6s, 4 7s, 4 8s, and 4 9s. Okay, that gives me a targeted focus. And exactly the same, using that progressive time delay and the constant time delay, we get that gradual release of responsibility. Because remember, we're still wanting to maintain accuracy as we're increasing this speed. So we've got those from there. We now are starting to move into the fluency component, and we've got explicit timing. So this is again, Timetable Rockstars uses this, Facts on Fire uses this concept, this evidence-based process, which is that you get 2 minutes, answer as many questions as you can. They will then get this tomorrow. They'll have 2 minutes and they try and beat their score. So we're about that student data being in the hands of the students. So they have this chart because the most they can score is 120, and they'll do this twice a day because it's 2 minutes. So two 2 minute sessions. You do that for 5 days, that's 10. And then from there, you can track your growth. So students can see if they're going, if it's linear, up or down, or if it's got that variability in it. And if it's got that variability in it, we can go back to the answers. But this is all being done independently. The students have their headphones on. My class did this today. So this is a living, breathing document for me. This isn't just something I go, oh, here, you should use it. I am actually using it with my students. We then have flashcards. Now, the difference between our flashcards and some other flashcards you can get is the simple fact that there's corrective feedback on the back. So when we're working as a partner, partner one holds it up. They'll go 4 times, say, read it, 4 6s. Okay, they see 4 8s. Okay, and then when they do it on the back, the partner has 32. So you can have those mixed ability groups because the partner can see the answer and you get that immediate feedback. So that instant corrective feedback is a real hallmark of Facts Forever in that everything we do has that almost instant practice. We're not giving kids a lot of time to practice facts that they don't know because we've built the accuracy to begin with, but then every activity's got that built-in corrective feedback and for all topics. So then we're starting to look at rate building. So we're starting to get up into that automaticity and we will have this test and you'll see it's a bit blurry, sorry, but you'll see they have 5 minutes to answer it. They'll then get this exact same test tomorrow, but they'll only have 4 minutes. And the idea is that they're trying to get that same amount each time as the minutes go down. So their rate is going up in a short amount, but on the exact same questions. Okay, so we're working with some students who are progressing really slowly. Okay, so they're just really not getting the hang of it. Another feature of Facts Forever is the array of evidence-based intervention protocols. This could be in the as it wouldn't be as a whole class, but this could be during tier one practice. This could be as the tier two practice. This could be as the tier three practice. So you could have students doing a tape practice and then a cover copy compare at a different time. So they would read the question, 8 4s are 32. They would cover it, then they would record the answer. If they uncover it and they wrote 36 and not 32, there's a second chance because we don't want them practicing an incorrect fact. So very similar to the spelling of look, say, cover, write, check. The reason that look, say, cover, write, check sort of isn't used as much in classrooms anymore is it was being used to teach the strategy or teach the spelling rule. These kids on this know the rule. They have the strategy instruction that you can go back to. This is developing that repetition, developing that fluency, not understanding. Understanding is covered in the strategy section. So now if I go back over here and I share when I find it again. All right, incremental rehearsal for those who aren't sure what it is slowly, basically exactly what it sounds like, slowly introducing facts bit by bit. So that's why our tracker is so good because it told me immediately, and obviously my example isn't matching that, but I can immediately create these looking at that student data. So we've got our explanation at the beginning of the program how we use these. Now, incremental rehearsal has to be made by the teacher. There's no way around it because it uses known and unknown facts. Now, if you're introducing it, if it's brand new, then the known facts are going to come from another area. They might be twos, and then there's fours, or it's going to differ for different people. Now, as a class, we might all be struggling with these two facts, so I would do it as a whole class. We might be struggling with a small group of us on a fact. I do it with them. It can, there are other versions of this, which I'll show you, but this is the one we can do where the teacher is sort of leading the process. This is not part of incremental rehearsal in terms of the literature. This is an addition that I've made because it connects with our big part of they've got to understand it before they can do it. So it takes them back through the strategy that's in strategy instruction. So when we're multiplying by four, we want to think twos and double. These are the two facts we're going to work with. Tells them how to read it. Four sevens are 28, four nines are, sorry, that should be 36. The cumulative property, it shows them that if we're learning four sevens, we're also learning seven fours, four nines, and nine fours. It steps them through the strategy. This is that sort of I do. Four sevens, think twos and double. Two sevens are 14, double 14 is 28. Same for the four nines. Then we're applying the strategy. We're still not really in incremental rehearsal yet. So we've got four sevens is, I step you through it. Two sevens are 14. Double 14 is 28. And we restate the problem. Four sevens is 28. Then we do the same for four nines. Two nines, think twos. Two nines are 18. Double 18 is 36. Four nines are 36. Now, if they're not accurate, I'm going back. We're doing it again and again and again and again. If they're still not accurate, we're going back to strategy instruction. So it's a very circular process in that you can see where we're building to and where we're coming from. So now we're transitioning from a strategy to recall. Four sevens are 28. What are four sevens? Four nines are 36. What are four nines? Then we would get them. Four sevens are four nines. You could do this as the whole group. You could have small, this half of the room, that half of the room. You might target students because you want to check them, and then it builds. So it's incrementally increasing the number of facts, but keeping those two as the constant. So now we have three facts, four facts, five facts, six facts, seven facts, eight facts, and nine. So we've got all the fours tables. But if you notice, four sevens are down there. They're still there down the bottom. They're still there, still there. Those two that we're doing every single time. And all you'd have to do is just adjust the known and the unknown facts. So you could, those flashcards that I showed you before, you could use them exactly the same. So you just have a pile of known, pile of unknown, show the two unknown, show a known, and then the two unknown, show two knowns and two unknowns, and build it up that way. So again, we have that consistency in terms of we've got different approach. We could do incremental rehearsal in different ways depending on the level of scaffolding that we need. And then if I flip back here and fix my camera after I get out of stop sharing, sorry. So we've done that. We're now here. And you can see now we've got a worksheet we can do, which follows the exact same process here. So now I can start to give that little bit more independence. We might have done the PowerPoint, shown that as a group, and now we're building on here. And if we've got kids who can do it, we can start moving them on to the mastery practice that we talked about before, or we can move them on to the flashcards. If they're still struggling with the flashcards, we go back to strategy. So there's always an approach that we can take for our students. And then the final one is we have these progress monitoring, and we might, it depends on how long your unit is, everything. To explain what these dark marks are. So as I said, these are specifically created so you get an equal amount of each fact. But one of the feedbacks we've had from a school we're working with is we don't like, if a kid only answers to there, can we keep using the same sheet? Well, this is where now you wouldn't give this to the students. This would be the teacher version. You could mark on there where they can start again. So if I answer to here, well, then I can start on the next question. But if I start here, if I finish here, this is the last one, I want to start there because in the tracker, you'll get the right answer. So we're designing it to try. We want a lot of feedback. We're making changes to our program as we're going along. So that's a very quick sort of step-by-step guide of how Facts Forever is implemented. So I'll answer a few questions that have come up through via email. It is a paid program because if I go back to the scope and sequence, you can see there's a large amount of units. So if you're interested, we can obviously talk about pricing. It's price based on student, but again, based on the feedback we're getting from schools, it might be purchasing units instead of classes. So if you don't want it for your F1-2s, you maybe only want it for 3 to 6s, but you only want multiplicative thinking, then we can look at how we can structure that. So yes, it's a paid resource, but we don't want kids missing out just because, schools can't afford it. We have guides for every single area. As I said, we're creating videos and we value your feedback. So this isn't a program that you purchase and go, it's not meeting our needs. What we would want is that this is a video so this is a program that's not meeting our needs. We're going to get in contact with me and we're going to work together to see if we can develop a resource that can do it. The other thing is because this is a live program, it's constantly being updated. It's constantly having extra things added to it. That means, but there's no extra cost. So if you purchase your subscription and it's got 8 strategy lessons, and then we add another 8, they come in and you have 16. So once you make that payment for the rest of the time, it's exactly you get everything, and as it builds up. As I said, we're looking to transfer that data into an online system, but we're trying to make sure that it is as user friendly for teachers as we can. So the couple of online versions we've had have just not been user friendly. So it's getting that balance between limiting the amount of work teachers have to do, but also having that adaptability. So whilst we are using Excel for our data trackers, as you can see, they're all designed to basically do the work for the teacher. They target the areas for them, and then the teachers design the programs. The last thing I'll say about this program is that it's designed to be a plug and play. So if you have fluency activities that you want to use that match our sequence, then you can pop those in. If you have different strategy techniques that you want to use, you can pop those in. If you have different language that you use, you can pop that in. So there are core elements that if you change the whole program. And obviously, we're happy to have a discussion about that. But the whole idea here is that yes, that we sort of provide the core basis of the program, but we don't want to limit teachers, and we don't want a just follow the script and be non-responsive. So we've built it around the idea of responsiveness. We've built it around the idea that teachers have a lot of knowledge already, but there are other areas where they might not feel confident, and how can we support them with that? And probably the biggest one is when we work with schools, we want to adapt it as best we can to your needs. As I said, there are core elements that we can't change that are research and evidence backed in terms of the way we progress or the order we do things. But in terms of layouts, in terms of resources, we want to be that, really getting that feedback from our customers. So I don't see anything in the chat, which is great. So I'll just give you just maybe a minute if you're on the live feed and you've got a question. If you're watching on the recording, please just email me at mikenelsonmaths@gmail.com and we can discuss your options there. So if there's nothing else, I'll say thank you for attending or thank you for watching on the webinar. As I said, get in touch with us if you've got an email. We'll send out this link as a recording and we'll send out the link if you're interested in implementing Facts Forever in your classroom or school. So that was the other thing. We do have plans for just classrooms because I know sometimes we have our early adopters who don't want to buy a whole school subscription, who only want it for their class. So that is an option that's also available. So have a great night. Thank you for coming along, and we hope to talk to you more about Facts Forever in the future. Thank you.